We have team coverage on all of this. Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver standing by with more on how global markets are reacting to that tariff announcement. And NBC News politics reporter Megan Leibowitz starts us off with the tensions on Capitol Hill. Megan, good morning to you. Thanks for being here. So we'll get to those tariffs in just a minute. But first, let's talk about some of the criticism we're hearing from Senate Republicans over Trump's tax bill. What are their biggest concerns, and how's Mike Johnson's July 4th deadline looking now?
Yeah, that's right. So a few of the Republicans who we heard from this weekend, they are part of the fiscal hawks part of the party. And their biggest concerns were that they thought that this bill was not doing enough to cut spending. And their biggest issue was also the fact that this is projected to raise the federal deficit, which for them is a non-starter. And so to give you some context on this, the Congressional Budget Office had put out an estimate saying that this bill, if passed in its current form, would increase the federal deficit by about $2.3 trillion over the course of 10 years. So you heard from Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin this weekend. Now, one thing that he mentioned that was significant was the fact that he said that there were enough Republicans, he thought, to perhaps take a closer look at this legislation and perhaps make some changes to it. And you also heard from Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Now, his thing, as you said, he thought that even he would still vote for the bill if it were, in his words, the spending cuts were wimpy and anemic, he said, but he criticized the fact that this would still impact the federal deficit. Now, it's important to note that any changes that happened in the Senate would still have to go back to the House, ultimately pass the House, where, as you pointed out, there's a very slim majority of Republicans there. So any potential negotiations could ultimately complicate this passage in order to reach the president's desk by July 4th, which is the deadline that Republicans have put forward.
Yeah, and that's coming up right around the corner. Let's also talk about the escalating fight between President Trump and Harvard University. Last week, a judge temporarily blocked the administration's attempt to stop Harvard from enrolling international students. So how's the administration responding to that?
Yeah, so the judge's pause is a temporary restraining order. What that basically means is that Harvard is still able to admit international students right now, and international students who are currently at Harvard can stay. They don't have to transfer. But this legal battle is going to be ongoing. And so there is a hearing tomorrow, actually, that we're going to be hearing from these parties on. But President Trump criticized Harvard again over the weekend. He took to Truth Social to ask for more information about some of these international students. And he also made similar comments to reporters this past weekend, just yesterday. Take a listen to what he had to say.
On Harvard, do you think you'll come for their endowment in any way or go after financial
Well,
aid?
look, part of the problem with Harvard is that there are about 31%, almost 31% of foreigners coming to Harvard. We do grants, which we're probably not going to be doing much grants anymore to Harvard. But there are 31%, but they refuse to tell us who the people are. We want to know who the people.
And now to take a step back here, Stephen, this is part of a months-long legal battle between the Trump administration and Harvard, and it started as part of the administration's effort. What they were saying was to combat alleged anti-Semitism on campus. They had initially issued a set of demands for Harvard, which Harvard had rejected, and that escalated into a continuing legal battle between the university and the Trump administration, Stephen.
Yet another legal battle for this administration. All right, let's talk about tariffs now, Megan. Late last week, President Trump threatened to slap higher tariffs on the European Union and on Apple iPhones. So what is he saying about his rationale for this and why he's now saying he'll postpone at least some of those tariffs?
Yeah, so both of these initial tariff threats happened on Friday. He said that he wanted to, he threatened to hit Apple with a 25% tariff on iPhones, in particular, asking that they be made in the U.S. And he also singled out the European Union in a separate post to Truth Social on Friday, threatening a blanket 50% tariff on imports from the EU. Now, just yesterday, he said that he had a conversation with Ursula von der Leyen. She's the president president of the European Commission, and he said that the two of them talked and that he is granting a request to extend the deadline for that 50% tariff from June 1st to July 9th. Now, it is important to note that July 9th is also when that 90-day pause is up, and so we're going to continue to see what happens there once we get to that deadline, Stephen.
A lot of things happening in July. All right, Megan Leibowitz, thank you so much.